Coming at you live. This is Jim Masters with the Jim Masters Show Live Entertainment, Lifestyle, Celebrity Talk Show series. How's everybody doing today? Hope you guys are doing well. We've got an amazing guest joining us. This is his return visit, actually. He joined us as a special guest when we paid homage to Carol Burnett and her 90th birthday. You may remember Wesley was with us. Wesley Hyatt is an extraordinary pop culture writer, author, aficionado, expert, and he's got 10 books out on some of your favorite stars, shows, series, time periods in entertainment, in television, and more. He's working on his 11th book as we speak, which is kind of exciting. I'll let him sort of tease what that is. It's going to be a good one. They're all good. I don't know if you've seen or have any of the books in your collection. Just running through just some of them. Of course, we talked about this when he was on during the Carol Burnett special, the Carol Burnett Show Companion, a complete encyclopedia of daytime television. I mean, what is your favorite show? He's probably talked about it. Television's top 100. He does it during certain time periods. He does it on certain celebrities themselves. Red Skelton show, of course, as well. And they're really terrific reads. Of course, the iconic Bob Hope. He's done them on Betty White. He's done them on just about everybody you can think of. Here's another one, too. Take a look at these, gang. You may even have some of these short-lived television series. You may even have some of these in your collection. If you don't, I do advise you add them to your collection because they are, and even kicking off the week, a history of Monday Night Football on ABC. He even covered that in the sports realm as well. It's really cool stuff. These are all great reads. And of course, as I mentioned, Betty White and so much more, which is his most recent. Hey, gang, if you'd like to comment during the show, we are coming at you live right now. This is a live broadcast. So you can comment in our JMS Levity Hall chat room, which is available when the shows are on live. And when you subscribe to our YouTube channel, guess what? There's a free gift, and that free gift is the ability for you to actually chat with one another and say hello to us during the course of the show as well. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV, and you can comment in the Levity Hall chat room. Don't forget to also give the episode a like as well as a thumbs up, and that means you actually are letting us know you're really enjoying what we're doing here. And all these great episodes, almost 1,000, talk about episodes, almost 1,000 episodes that we have done in just 3 years' time of the Jim Masters Show live series. Wesley is joining us from Durham, North Carolina, where he makes his home. And again, you see the Betty White book right there on the screen. Incredible. These are just some of the many in the collection of 10. And he's working on his 11th, and we're really excited about that. Let's welcome our very special guest, pop culture writer, author, expert, and so much more. And he has a whole other, full-time professional career separate from focusing on the entertainment industry. We can even talk about that as well, but let's welcome him as our special guest on the show. Wesley, good to have you back with the Jim Masters Show live series, my friend. Welcome.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for having me back, and happy June to you and everyone watching.
To you as well. So how's the weather where you are there in the Carolinas?
It's getting warmer. It's finally summer-like. It's in the 80s and sunny today, and very nice, and supposed to be like that the rest of the week. So
very nice. Good writing weather, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I'm kind of like, God, maybe I should have done this outside right now and hope the light would stick for the entire view. But I'll manage to make it through here, I think.
Now, I mentioned that you are actually, we'll talk about, the books and everything else. You're a real lover of everything pop culture and especially television, all the people that make television and film as well, like I am, and working in the industry. I was telling you, I was actually telling our guests, I literally just got off the air from a television shoot moments ago, and then we popped in this chair for today's show of the Jim Masters Show. So I have a whole other professional career in television and radio, and have for years, and doing a ton of different things. And you're writing about all these different things and these amazing people and the histories of it all. What inspired you to do it in the beginning? What was it about? Were you a kid that always loved television and film and entertainment and Hollywood?
Yeah, I'd say so. I really did like watching TV and listening to American Top 40 back in the 70s when I was growing up with Casey Kasem during the time. That would be a
Hmm.
regular appointment every weekend to do
Oh
that.
yeah.
And it was during this time that really the first really serious books about TV history were coming out, and I launched onto them. And I think you showed one of them. I want to clarify to everyone: I didn't write all the books there. The one that came out in 1979 was the Complete Directory to Primetime TV Shows, written by Tim Brooks and Earl Marsh. And I latched onto that book, and it listed basically any show that was on ABC, CBS, NBC, and for people who remember the old time network Dumont back in the 40s
Yes.
and 50s. Um, and it was just an incredible read to read what they said about each of the series, some of which I'd never heard before in my life, because this was before YouTube, and I think it's pretty well known in TV history. Unfortunately, a lot of shows have been lost because they weren't on film, or the kinescopes, which was basically a film of the live show directed at one of the TV monitors. Those were made sometimes, but are not always kept well, and lost. And believe it or not, videotape was a lot of times shows that were videotaped, particularly in the afternoons. They would just erase the shows. They would just tape over them to save the cost of keeping the storing and keeping the videotapes of the show, because they thought they were expendable. So as a result, we have a lot of TV shows before the 1980s that are basically lost, and all we have sometimes are just the records we have of the coverage that they had in press releases and articles and books like mine.
Isn't that
So
what happened with Johnny Carson with the Tonight Show in the beginning too? They really weren't saving them because,
yeah.
they were just happening and people didn't think to save them. And then he sort of, in a way, came in and found a way to actually preserve all of them. And of course, ending up owning the collection. But that was
Yeah.
a really smart move early on.
Yeah, he did not like the way NBC treated him in several ways, and that included what was going on with the videotapes. Basically, the first 10 years of the show, 62 to 72, are pretty much lost. There are some episodes like the Tiny Tim one. I saw them add him talking to some of the astronauts in 1969 if they came back from walking on the moon. Thankfully, that was kept there, and some other odds and ends. But really, the amount of shows of the Tonight Show that are available to watch before 1972, you could probably watch within a week, maybe even less.
It's amazing, isn't it, when you
Yeah.
think about it,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And then he has the Carson Enterprises have everything sort of,
Yep.
they're buried underground, right, in a vault that's climate controlled, the whole bit.
Yeah, as I understand, it's his nephew Jeff Zotzing has been a real good keeper of the flame and everything, so to speak, and also been putting out updates there on the YouTube channel that have been really fascinating to see. I think one recent one that I watched was the only time that Jackie Gleason spoke on the show, and Johnny gave him 3 segments to do. Which, if you remember Johnny's show, he usually sometimes gave guests maybe one segment at all during the show. So that's an indication of how much he respected and admired Jackie's talent.
Oh, yes. The time there's that one particular episode, 1985, when he came on, and, he had his little, cocktail with him and his cigarette, how sweet it is,
Mhm.
and
Yep. Yep. Yes,
yeah,
indeed. And it was funny. Ed Ames, who passed recently,
yeah.
most people, he had a great scene career. Uh, by himself as a solo, and with his brothers as the Ames brothers in the 50s. And he also had a regular role on the Daniel Boone TV series in the 1960s too. But most people probably remember him, if at all, now for that segment on the Tonight Show where he was throwing an axe, and they had a drawing of a man, and the axe managed to land in a way that I think Johnny aptly called it "Welcome to Frontier Briss." At the time, that gives you an idea of it. It was just one of the most hysterical things, and thankfully, that was one segment that has survived over the years from the early '60s.
What
segment.
were some of your personal favorite shows as you were growing up? What were the people? Who were the people on the shows that you always personally enjoyed?
Well, I know that when I was a child, I was growing up in the '70s. So a big influence to me was CBS Saturday nights.
Mm,
Particularly, we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of the killer schedule that was All in the Family, MASH, Harry Tyler Moore Show, the Bob Newhart Show, and the Carol Burnett Show, all in one night. And as I later talked with Fred Silverman, who was head of programming at CBS at the time, and he really considered that to be his greatest lineup that he ever did of anything. And it was like every show was getting at least a 40 share of the audience, meaning like 4 out of every 10 TV sets that were on in America were watching those shows. And that was a Saturday nights too. That
yeah,
tells
it's
you something.
incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
those were good. I also remember watching Laugh-In, and liking that. I used to like a lot of the comedies, but I did like the Twilight Zone
Oh,
a good deal.
yes.
I would
Yeah.
watch a lot of the daytime talk shows as well. They were usually on in the afternoons when I came back from school at that time, and of course the
Mike
Saturday morning cartoons.
Douglas and
Yeah. Merv Griffin, yep, and Dinah Shore, all those that you would see in the afternoons. They were always
remember the
good.
Galloping Gourmet?
Galloping Gourmet, yes, I do. I remember watching him. Indeed, that is without a doubt. Who's never seen it? It is the funniest cooking show I think you can ever
It's
watch.
lots of
Yeah.
wine involved,
Yes.
that's for
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
Lots
Yes.
of wine pouring,
Yes.
and that was in the afternoon. I believe it was on CBS, wasn't it?
It was
I think
actually syndicated.
it was
It was
syndicated.
yeah, it was taped in Canada and then shot to a lot of markets in the United States and did very well for a time. And then I think Graham Carr, who was the host of the show, he got
Yes,
involved. He had a car accident or something like that, and later converted into becoming a real Christian and
yeah,
not cooking with wine anymore. In fact,
right. Yeah,
yeah,
we used to see it on WCBS Channel 2 in New York. It would be
yeah,
on in the afternoon,
yeah.
as well as Tattletales and Match
Yeah,
Game and
Tattletale. I'd watch those game shows a lot too. I was not into the soap operas at all growing up there, but I would watch if I had the time. I would watch the game shows religiously, and that kind of helped form me into doing my daytime TV series book. As the first time was a lot of that was that I'd already done some of the research and myself, watching it when I was a child, so that helped.
Tell us about that. Yeah, the
Yeah.
daytime TV series book and how that all came together.
Okay, let me try and condense it here so we don't have a whole time doing it there. Basically, when I was growing up, like I mentioned, the Complete Directory to Primetime TV Shows is one of my favorite books that I had as a child. I liked it and enjoyed reading it immensely. And I thought, okay, they're going to do a book on Complete Directory on daytime TV shows sometime. And I waited and I waited, and they never did. And okay, well, maybe someday I can do it. Cut to me after I graduate high school in '83, and then I go to attend the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, where I'm communications major, thinking I would do something involving, TV industry, movie industry, radio, something involving that area. During that time, I learned it was good training for me because I learned that I was not cut out and not quite interested in doing some of the behind the scenes work. I already knew that I was not cut out to be an actor or performer. I'm not really happy with the way I look or sound. I don't think it's as great as I'd like it to be for professionally. So it gave me time to think, maybe I need to think about maybe becoming a writer. And I was also that at that time at school, I realized I could also become a double major in English with the way they had the system set up. So I did that. After I uh, graduated, I started working at weekly newspapers there near Greensboro, and then came back here to one in Hillsboro, which is near here in Durham, back in the early '90s. And then after about Oh gosh, 6 or 7 years of doing weekly newspapers can burn one out. At least it did for me.
Mm,
So when I got finished with that, I decided to investigate the possibility of let's see about doing a book on daytime TV series. See if there's any publishers interested. So I had to learn about how to do a query letter, which is basically setting out the information about proposing what you want to do in the book, and um, also coming up with some sample chapters, and forced me to think about how I wanted to present the book. And I put it out to 3 or 4 publishers that didn't require an agent, because I didn't know how to get an agent at the time. I was worried that was complicated enough just getting a query letter together as what I had there. And one of them at the time was Billboard Books, and the editor there liked my idea, and he said, "Let's do it, but I also want to make you encouraged to get some pictures in it to make it stand out better." 'Cause they were really big in that stuff. So I gulped and I went ahead and did that, and it was a big adventure from there. It took me about 2 years total to research and write the book, because this started in 1995, and this was right before the internet really exploded. So
mm.
I had to go back and go into um, microfilm, microfiche, that sort of
Yes.
thing, into
Yeah.
libraries to find out a lot of things. I use the periodical guide to literature to look up magazine articles on the shows. I went to tried to buy and rent any VHS tapes they had at the time of the old series, which surprised me. Some stuff did make it through. Even some of the early soap operas had a few episodes where I could watch, which was really good to get it together. And it came out finally came out about 25 years ago, which blows my mind, but I was very happy with the result. And people like, would you ever want to update it? And I'm like, one, daytime TV since then hasn't really impressed me, and two, since I've seen everything, seen a lot more shows and everything, the summaries I put on there really hold up pretty well. I'd say 9 out of 10 entries I wouldn't change at all.
Mm.
So
And the
yeah.
title of that one for everybody so they can go research and get it?
The official title is the Encyclopedia of Daytime Television, which you showed there. It is about 500 and some pages long,
Yeah.
about 100 photographs included, and it was a real good, enjoyable project. Yeah, that's the cover of it right there. The different ones. You can tell Oprah, Today Show, This Week with David Brinkley. So I also covered the weekends as well. Bullwinkle, Captain Kangaroo, Let's Make a Deal, Dark Shadows, and General Hospital. All of those in there. And to those who ask, yes, I tried to write up the entire history of each soap opera's plot line, which was fun to believe you me, it was a real chore, but somehow I did it as best I could in condensing it and getting the major points and players across. That was fine, and then some others were just easier to write because they were quick and they didn't have much of a story to tell. But
Mhm.
for each one, I listed the I listed it alphabetically by title. I described what genre it's in, whether it was in black and white and color, um, to keep, because it was a lot of times black and white before 1967 or so. Um, and also gave the running times when it was aired here on the East Coast, to give an
Mhm.
idea of what periods it went through and everything. And it's rather amazing how some shows shifted a lot and some didn't. And for a long time, like As the World Turns, for a long time was Monday through Fridays from 1:30 to 2 or 1:30 to 2:30, and then it moved to 2 to 3, and that was pretty
Mhm.
much it. Its entire run history over 50 years, you know.
Yes. Yeah, there were so many of them.
Yeah.
Love is a Many Splendid Thing, Love
Yes.
of Life.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Yeah, Somerset, and just yeah, they
Yeah.
were so big. Procter and Gamble and some of the others involved in, and that's where soap opera. Some people are like, "Oh, soap opera. Where'd they ever come up
Hmm.
with that?" Well, the soap companies, Procter and Gamble, etc., really funded the
Hmm.
creation of those shows, the soap operas, all of
Yeah.
those shows, and then their ads were what you saw for their products during the soap operas. That's where the soap came
Yep.
from.
Yep. And in fact, I didn't know it till after I did the book and saw some more research on it. But Procter and Gamble were very smart about doing the shows, the soap operas, the way they did. The soap operas were live, but the commercials were filmed, so that way they were ensured that their message would not be altered or bothered that way. Also have a professional glean about it every time.
Right, exactly right.
Yeah.
Because before that, they used to read a lot of the craft even beforehand, before they
Yeah.
started doing everything on film and what have you. The commercials were read live during the Milton Berle show and some of
Mhm.
the
Yep,
others. Yeah.
yep, yep, and
However,
sometimes they wouldn't always come off the way the advertiser wanted, so it was a good move by Procter& and Gamble to do that and sponsor a lot of them. Edge of Night, which was a big one there too, and Guiding Light, let's not forget that
Guiding
one as well.
Light and
Yep,
Another World,
yep,
and
mhm,
really most of them, if not Procter and Gamble, and then I
Colgate.
think it was yes, and then what's it? Bell was big with a lot of them on CBS. The producers, Bell.
And there was also a group called American Home Products, which didn't advertise itself as a company, but it advertised a lot of distinctive products. I'm thinking like Lavoris and some others that it had there. It was
Yes.
the emphasis was on the products that way, and they did the Secret Storm,
Yeah.
and I think they did Love of Life as well on what they had sponsored there. Yeah.
So when you penned this book, took all the
Hmm.
time and put this together, and it came out. It's extraordinary. And this a linchpin for you to want to continue writing and continuing, authoring more material about the industry?
Yes, it was in a weird way because when I got finished, my editor said, "We love you. We love the book. What's your next idea?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm supposed to have a next idea. Okay. Let me get back to you." So, knowing that I was working with Billboard, they had a book series that had come out earlier, and I think you showed one of them, the Billboard Book of Number One Hits, written by a really talented writer and great guy who used to work at NBC named Fred Bronson, um, and he did about 4 or 5 editions of that book. It was so successful that they had people did one the book of number one country hits, the book of number one R&B hits. So I thought, all right, well maybe they've got their adult contemporary easy listening charts. Maybe how what if I propose a book on that? They said, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea."
So this is
So,
the one we were
that was the
talking
one
about.
that
Yeah.
inspired me, yeah, there.
That inspired
Yeah,
you right
yeah.
there.
Fred's book is just incredible. He devoted a page to each song that hit number 1, going all the way back to "Rock Around the Clock" in 1955, and by the time he finished, I think he finished, like, in 2002, 2003. It was Clay Aiken's song that, came it was number 1 there, and by that time, he said, the people at Billboard said, "You're gonna have to cut it off. You're gonna have to cut out some of this if we're gonna do further additions." He's like, "No, I want to keep it all as is, so I'm not gonna, do it that way." Um, but yeah, I was like, I cannot write a full page on some of these things because he was writing to fill it up. I think some of it was like 750 to 1,000 words, and so I knew that some of the um, number ones that were number one on the easy listening chart were esoteric. Some of
Yes.
them didn't even make the Billboard Hot 100, so it
Right.
would be a hard time to fill it up. So I said, let me keep it around 500 words each. So it's about 2 entries per page on it that
Hmm.
way. And it still came out very well that way. I interviewed about 100 different writers, songwriters, producers, and artists themselves. And some of it took me a less time to do it a year, but it was still for some of them it took like it took me literally months to set up an interview with Helen Reddy, but it was worth it because she was very frank about what songs she liked and what things were going on with the recording, and that's the sort of thing I like to hear and learn about there. And it was very good. It was the first one. I didn't really interview anyone for the previous book. It was mainly, you relying on watching the shows themselves and articles about them and so on that way. So this was a nice change of pace for me when I did that.
Hmm. What kind of music did you enjoy growing up?
Well, I did like I said, American Top 40. I was pretty much like into the basic pop station stuff they had at the time there. And then I can't remember when, but I do remember I would go to the library and I learned about Joel Whitburn doing his books, researching the Billboard Hot 100 charts, and getting hooked on that along with what they had about the information. And I really enjoyed following that through. And I don't think I should tell you and everything. Uh, while I was doing the work on both of these books, the first two books, I was working for Casey and the Sunshine Band, coincidentally.
Yes, and
Now,
here's that
how,
other book there.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there it
Now,
is.
how that happened was, uh, I was by that time time I was working on the daytime encyclopedia book there. I had started working at Divers Alert Network, which was a scuba diving health and safety program affiliated with Duke University here in Durham. Also, during that time, they had a health program designed for people who wanted to lose weight and get things together. And one of the people who was attending it at the time was Harry Wayne Casey, aka the lead singer of Casey and the Sunshine Band. So I met him, told him I was a real fan, told him what I was doing. He's like, I could use someone like you in my organization as we're getting back and touring and everything to help with the communications thing. So I went, okay, sounds good. I'm also working at a book at the same time, but okay, I'll give it a shot. And it was pretty interesting doing the books and touring around the world at the same time was pretty wild. And it was also gave me, I was uh, backstage on some shows they were doing. Yeah, that's my picture with Casey right there. He loved the area here so much he bought a house near Durham in Orange County, and that one was taken about 10 years ago, I think. Saw him around Easter every year when he comes in, has his family come down and do some sort of things there.
You have a
Uh,
favorite Casey song?
oh gosh, I mean, I think Uh, well, he always does. He always wins with "Get Down Tonight." That's always a
Yes,
crowd pleaser, so that's good there.
that's the way I
And
like it.
yeah, that's the way I like it. Yeah, they're all. It's a very energetic show to get it going
Oh
there. There's
yeah.
maybe only one or two slow songs. Usually, "Please Don't Go," which is one of his big hits there as well. And I think he's also done "Yes, I'm Ready" with his backup singers because he did that with Terry DeSerio back in 1980, and that was a big hit as well. So yeah, so through all of this, I'm writing a book at the same time I'm like staying at the apartment that Oprah Winfrey has across from her studio while they're appearing on her show. It was just really mind-boggling and but exciting, very much. But I ended that in 2000 because eventually it was just wearing me down to do a lot of touring. I'll be honest. I think I'm actually more surprised that more musicians aren't hooked on drugs because of the way the lifestyle it is. With having to go so many places, and then you get so amped when you're on stage and everyone's applauding you and saying you're great, and then to come down from that and trying to get some sleep or just relax, it's hard to do.
It
You know,
really is.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. In
It's
fact, when I talked to Helen Reddy, I said, what do you remember about those days in the 70s when all the hits? She said, honestly, I remember I just didn't get enough sleep. She said, I was constantly just tired, because she was always either promoting her songs, singing them, promoting them, doing TV shows,
Then they had all the TV
concerts.
shows of the day,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
To
She
be
was doing Midnight Special. She was a hostess on there for a while. She had her a summer show. Yeah, and she did a lot of work there. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
TV.
guest star. That's what happened. Everybody would be a guest star on, Sonny
Yeah,
and Cher or Captain and
yeah.
Tennille or Donnie and Marie or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the
Helen
talk
Reddy was
shows.
on, I think she did Carol's show 4 or 5 times. So yeah, she was really light there, and that was a good it was a good march match
She
for
was
her, you know.
terrific, really.
Yeah,
She,
yeah.
I had the pleasure of meeting her actually when I was a reporter, news reporter for the newspaper in college, and she was
Oh, cool.
performing at the school in New York, and we got a chance to sit down, chat with her, and she was terrific, really,
Yeah,
really terrific person.
yeah. Yeah, she was very uh helpful to me and everything, and I enjoyed our talk. She was at a good place that she was relaxed, and they are able to remember the old times, and I prod her about certain things, and she was very a good interview, as we like to say. So,
Exactly.
you know.
So when you came out with that book,
Mhm.
this one here, what followed? What was
The
next for
follow
you?
that, okay. I remember, yeah. So after that,
I know there's so many, right? You got to keep
yeah,
them track.
I was trying to think, okay, I like doing the book on the music, but it was kind of limiting to me, and I knew that my forte was covering television. So I was trying to think about something that could be like that book, that would be quick bits I could do writing something on, so on. And that led me to do the short-lived TV series book 1948 to 1978, because I thought that that was a good stopping point, because after 1978, that's when TV series were really being canceled left and right. Um, Doing it for the first 30 years would limit me to about, I don't know, a couple of hundred shows that I'd have to check on, and talk to people and get to interview them about. And that was good to do, because right then, especially for some of the shows in the 40s and 50s, that's when some people were kind of disappearing, shall we say, from the landscape and not able to see. Yeah, that the cover photo there is from the show "It's About Time," which, if anyone remembers, it was on CBS in 1966, 67, uh, um, between Lassie and the Ed Sullivan Show, and it was about two astronauts who got caught in time and went back to prehistoric era, and they ran into a family. The family includes, if you see it on the right there, it's Imogene Coca in that, and Joey Brown. I can't remember his name. On the left was there. It was not as getting as much ratings as they hoped there. So middle of the season, they decide to transfer it and have the astronauts come back to present day United States. But guess what? Uh-oh, the Neanderthals came back with them. So now they've got all that mischief to go through. And I talked with one of the actors involved, and he said it was just, he knew then when they switched it that it was not going to work.
Mm,
The concept was just getting more desperate at the
yeah.
time there. Um, but I covered for this one short-lived series that were on the networks, and daytime and nighttime. So I got to talk to several people that I covered about the daytime game shows, and some of the soap operas and so on that way. And that was a fun project. The only downside about that project was when I started it, um, it was around 2001, and you know what happened there on
Hmm.
September 11th. There, it made it more challenging. I didn't. This was back before we had caller ID so prevalent, but still, then it became more challenging to set up interviews thereafter. So I wasn't able to get as many as I'd hope, but I did get a few good ones that I really enjoyed. Talking to, and getting their memories, and it was good, because not all of them, the easiest thing they could have said was, well, it was the network's fault, they didn't schedule us at the right time, or it was the audience fault. But most of them found there were several things wrong with the show themselves. That there's this, it was something happening wrong with the production, or the scripts weren't as good as when they did the pilot originally. There's a lot of elements that go into these things and affect them a great deal.
Mm,
So it
yeah.
was a good, um, there were a few people like, I don't want to talk to you about my failures, and turn me away
Right.
that way.
Right.
That's tough. But I had to tell them it was not a mean spirited book, was not designed to make fun of it. It's like we celebrate the ones that are successful, but the ones that are failures can teach us something as well, I think.
Absolutely
You
right.
know,
Yes, because you
yeah,
take that and then you move on, dust yourself off and you move on.
yeah. The
Absolutely.
likelihood is, if you're working in broadcasting, you're going to have a few flops.
Yes.
Despite your best efforts. And
Exactly right.
and
Yeah.
then you have to review that and say, okay, what went wrong here? What have I learned? What can I adjust for the future, and do that? And um, that's a smart thing, that ones who really last, I think, have those kind of activities happen in their lives, and move forward from it.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Exactly. You also
Yeah.
wrote a book, The Red Skelton Show, 51 to 71. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was looking at, they had in the complete directory to primetime TV shows, they listed all the longest running shows. So I was going on the opposite scale this time, and saying, well, maybe there's a long running show that hasn't been covered. And this was one of them that stuck out to me. I was like, oh, okay. I really had not seen that much of Red's show, because it went off in 71 when I was 6. I'm not even sure if I've ever saw it. Maybe I did, but I couldn't remember it. So I did some researching around and tried to watch. There were some shows available out of his series back in the 50s and 60s. I watched those. I got a hold of some people who worked on the show as well, and who guest starred. There weren't too many, unfortunately. By the time I was working on the early 2000s, they were um, few and far between, as we'd say. And The thing about Red is that he was a great improviser, but he did not treat his writers as well as he could have and should have.
I've
And
heard that. Yeah.
yeah, and that's why there was a lot of turnover there. And I think it hurt him in the long run, because I think he didn't have any allies within wanting him to do much after the show ended. What happened with the show, in a nutshell, Red came to TV. He was predicted to be a big success on TV, and he was initially, because unlike most of the radio comedians, he was very visual. As you can see there with that character he's playing there, is Freddie the Freeloader, which is a
Yeah.
talking kind of bum, and it was very endearing, and with makeup and that sort of thing. And he could get into costume as his characters on TV much quicker, that way. After 2 years on NBC, the second year they had him, his ratings went down, and they fired him, but he went to CBS, and slowly his ratings went up by the mid 1950s. And by 1962, then his show went from a half hour to an hour long,
Hmm.
and it really exploded there. It was a top attraction on TV for 2 seasons, in 62, 63, and 66, 67. It was the number 2 show on television. In fact, it
Right.
was big.
Right. Right.
But the problem was that his shows tended to attract older audiences, less affluent viewers, less educated, and it was therefore not as saleable for them to have him on the show. Also, in 1970, his contract with CBS was coming up, as well as some of the other writers, and they were obviously going to ask for more money, because the show was still in the top 10 at the time. Well, CBS's bean crunchers did the math, and they figured out, if they gave the increases, and even if the um, ratings stayed the same level they were, which is a big if, the best they could do would be to break even in that scenario. And they thought, okay, we're not going to do this. This is going to be too much of a risk for us. So they went ahead and canceled um, Red, even though he was in the top 10 at the time, and it shocked him a lot. so his business manager managed to get a slot on NBC at a half-hour slot before Laugh In, and that was not a good mix. That last season was really bad. He had different writers, and it was just a mess. And NBC canceled it after that. And after that, Red temporarily announced he was retiring from show business. Then he came back, but when he came back, he'd burned a lot of bridges and couldn't get more than a couple of guest shots on talk shows and doing
Mm.
voices on cartoons. He did some specials for HBO in the 1980s, but they were all taped in Canada, pretty affordable. And
So he was bitter. He was
he
unhappy.
was bitter.
Yeah.
When he accepted, he did get a one of the awards from the TV Hall of Fame, but
Yeah.
when they stood up and applauded him there and sat down and said, I thought y'all are going to walk out on me like CBS. And you're kind of making a joke on that. And you're like, is that really the right thing you want to say, when
Right.
you're getting it together?
I think I saw a
Um,
clip of that somewhere. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
Circulating.
yeah, he really was. There was rumors in the 19 that his writers had to sue him in 1980 because he threatened to burn the videotapes of the show because
Can you
he said,
imagine
"Nope."
what would be happening now with the
Yeah,
writer's strike? They would
yeah.
be, yeah.
But they managed to stop him. He did get some of his shows edited down to a half-hour form like Carol Burnett's did, but when that came out in, I think, 1983 or 1984, by that time, the show had been off for, like, 13, 14 years. A lot of people like, "Who's Red Skelton? Why do we wanna see this?" And it bombed there, and it wasn't until I think they finally Time Life a couple years ago finally started a series of getting his shows on there. But like with Carol Burnett shows, music rights have prevented, some of the performances to be on there, which is a shame because he used to have acts like including the Rolling Stones
Mhm.
and a lot of them to try and win over younger viewers. It didn't win that much, but he actually had a pretty good lineup of musical performers on there that sadly we won't see their performances, I don't think, anytime soon.
All the copyright and everything
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
involved with it all sort of ties it
Yes.
all up, and, it's like that in so many different, venues, including in this, with YouTube as well. They're very tough with all that as well. You
Oh, yeah.
also, celebrated Bob Hope.
Yeah, Bob Hope was, when I did a couple of years ago. This one I came out with the idea. There was a biography about Bob put out by a very respected writer there. I can't remember his name offhand, but he did a very well job. But it was like I'd seen the other biographies of Bob Hope, and it was just like they gave short shrift to his TV career. And I thought, you know, he's won awards for his work on TV. It would be great if we could cover him, not only his specials that he did for so long, because he was a top rated act on TV, from the 50s to the 80s at least, and kept doing specials through 96. But he also did some guest star work on acting on TV. He, of course, hosted the Academy Awards for many years. That was good to see. And he made some other guest shots on game shows and talk shows. And I thought it'd be worth trying to investigate that and getting that together. And I did that. A lot of it I was able to find a lot of it online, but not all of it. I learned that Bob's time when he was a rotating star on the Colgate Comedy Hour back in the early 50s. And the Colgate Comedy Hour, for the most part, did not keep kinescopes or got rid of them of their shows. So most of Bob's performances on there have been lost to time. And some of you may be saying, "Well, I saw Lewis and Martin. They've got all their Colgate Comedy Hours out there." Yes, the reason why is because Jerry Lewis was smart enough to tell them, "Hey, make me a copy, film each one of these things. Make me a copy. I'll pay for it and everything." So Jerry had those all in his vault and ready to go and ready to put out for everyone to see in later years. Bob got wise to that afterwards, and then most of his TV appearances since 1955, on his specials at least, he owned them and he kept them in good shape going that way.
Mm.
And again, I got to talk to a lot of people. Um, who worked with him over the years, on specials and,
And yeah, of course,
especially
the movies
especially
with Crosby and
yes,
some of the other things. Yeah.
yeah, and some of them who went on tour with him when he did the Christmas specials in Vietnam and those areas. It was really instructive to have that there. Gloria Loring, the singer, Friends and Lovers, and she was also on uh, Days of Our Lives, and other things.
And she was
She sent,
married to Alan Thicke at one
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
She went on tour with him and took some pictures and gave that to me of him going with their adventure there. And she told me, that it could be exhausting for them. Some of the gold diggers from Dean Martin's TV show that would come out and perform for the men, some of them would be exhausted. They would be carried off in stretchers from the planes when they landed back in the United States, because it was a pretty intense 2 week
Yeah.
tour of different
Yeah.
bases. And I think that's forgotten. Bob,
As
for all of his faults, really was a very patriotic American to give his time and effort
Yeah,
to the
absolutely.
troops for so
I
long.
had read or heard that he was not necessarily Johnny Carson's favorite guest
Hmm.
because there
Yeah.
was something in a contract where,
Hmm.
because they were all on NBC, he had to go on there, and it wasn't necessarily his favorite because he would go on and he could have as much time as he wanted. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, what it was Bob lived in Toluca Lake, which is a community near Burbank. So it would take him about maybe 10 minutes to drive to where Johnny's doing the Tonight Show in the studio there. Well, Bob reached out a thing where he would have his assistant put on his makeup and everything like that in advance. So he'd drive there and he'd just be ready to stroll on whenever. And, he could promote whatever he wanted and then just leave, say he's busy, even though he only had like 10 minutes will go away, and Johnny felt like, oh, this is just, why is he able to get this kind of treatment? But of course, it was because Bob was such a big money maker for NBC all the time, and, audience favorite there. And as time went on, as you know, when Bob got into his late 80s, he became, you know, older. He lost his hearing ability a great deal. His eyesight worsened from where it was there. And it was just like, it was
harder to
just,
conduct
yeah, yeah,
conversation.
yeah, interview with him and as best he could. And Johnny was just like, I think when Johnny saw that was happening, he's like, I do not want to be seen on TV and being appearing like that. And he had a point, because watching Bob's last specials were really, really sad and difficult to watch. It was obviously, you're seeing a person who's not all there, trying hard to perform, but um, not
Yeah.
succeeding. And that was
Yeah.
that was a tough part, because when you saw him in his element on TV in the 50s and 60s, there was no one really to top him. He just
Right.
had great delivery, great one-liners, and that sort of
Hmm.
thing.
All those Texaco commercials he did for years.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep. And they became a sponsor in 75 with the condition that they wanted him to use some different riders and everything and make it more adventurous, which he was willing to accept at the time there. And it was a different kind of pace. And during the 80s, he did a lot more shows outside the studios and so on that way too. I forgot to tell you as well, when Bob did do Johnny's show, sometimes he would do his monologue after Johnny did his show. He'd like, I'll just keep the audience here and I'll entertain them and that sort of thing. So I think Johnny might have resented that his audience was serving as Bob's audience, and that they were going to be using that uh, studio for that purpose there. But in truth, Bob had been using that studio before Johnny came out from New York to work there at Burbank in '72. So
Mm. Yes. And
yeah,
so many stories, behind the scenes of
yeah,
just what it takes to put it all together. You also,
yeah.
of course, celebrating Betty White.
Yes, yes. This is my most recent book. And I did, like I said, did Bob Hope on TV. And I was thinking, I'd like to do someone else who would be have a great TV career. And then it hit me like, was I sexist or stupid or maybe a combination of what? I'm like, Betty White, who else? TV personified.
Hmm.
So I went ahead and started working on the book, um, and tried to covered her all of her series that she did, and she had a huge amount. She had
Yeah. Life with Elizabeth.
over
Yeah.
20 TV series. She was really long period. She appeared on TV in 1939 in experimental TV. That's how long she had been doing it, on TV for 80 years, pretty much. And um, I found it was easier to do this one by for her to group the chapters by the genre she was in. So I started with like talk. That's basically how she started on TV back
That's right.
in the 40s and 50s. She had done a local talk show on in Los Angeles, and they would get a lot of stars, and it was big enough, unbelievable. I don't know how she did it, and I'm not sure how she did it either. But they would sometimes do the show live 5.5 hours every day, which is nuts. And then from there, then she mentioned, like you mentioned, Life with Elizabeth was a sketch that they started doing that came out of that. And so she started doing that and they started filming that. And that went into syndication in 1953 and got some big exposure for her. And then to add to that, in 1954, she got her first daytime show on NBC because they wanted to change up their thing as well there. Um, and then she had her ups and downs in the career, but luckily
Password, the game shows, Alan Ludden. Yeah, the
that
whole
kept her active
spectrum.
during the 60s, yeah, and that sort of thing. And then she really came back with the vengeance when she got the regular role of Sue Ann Nivens on
Mary
Mary
Tyler
Tyler
Show.
Moore in 73. It just went into the stratosphere there, and then followed by the Golden Girls. And then there were other series roles that she did. And I also
Hot in
talked about
Cleveland.
Hot in Cleveland. She also had a regular role on The Bold and the Beautiful, and the director there talked to me about that. She also, was had a thing going on Boston Legal there, playing a recurring character at the same time. I was able to talk to pretty much at least one person from every show that she did prior to, um, I think, prior to her second sitcom Date with the Angels. Like I did talk with Tom Kennedy, who did the commercials for the show, and who loved her. Everyone, of course, loved talking with Betty. Was the easiest one I could get. That yeah, there's a picture of me with Tom. Tom Kennedy was a friend of mine. I got to meet him when I started going to what they called the Game Show Congress back in
Yes.
2007 and 2009.
He was a legendary game
Yes,
show host extraordinaire.
he was one of my favorites, if not my favorite
Yeah, really good.
one.
Yes.
Yeah. And, when I met him there, I was kind of agog, but we became fast friends. And whenever I'd get out to California, I'd see him. He had a beautiful condo in Oxnard, facing the ocean. That was just wonderful, and just a great view. And he had just was a great storyteller, and really enjoyed his fans and appreciated life as itself there. It was a tough blow for me when he died a couple years ago at age 93. I think I talked to him around July 4th that year and just wished him a happy Independence Day, just because I thought I ought to do that and do that. And I'm glad I did, because he passed away a couple of weeks later.
And
But
he
he,
hosted some of the most iconic game shows too
yes,
that we
yes.
all, knew and loved and still
Yeah,
love.
Name That Tune, he hosted
Name
that
that
for a
tune,
long
right?
time. Yep, and daytime, he had a lot of success with Split Second in the '70s, which they've now revived apparently, and gonna, have that go. That was a fast-paced game. In the 1960s, some people may remember You Don't Say that he did, which was like a password clone
That's
where
right.
a person would give a sentence, and then the last word of the sentence would be missing, and that would serve as a clue. That ran for about 6 or 7 years there as well, and he had a bunch of them going up, into the 1980s, and, just really dynamic, really friendly, really wonderful. Yeah, that was him right in his prime there, that he did so well, even if the shows didn't last long, they'd have him back on another one constantly during the 60s through
Right?
80s.
Exactly. He
Yeah.
would be like the go-to guy,
Yeah,
and there'd
and
be a
if
new show that would
yeah.
come out, and he would be, doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, and when Alan Ludden passed away, when they were doing Password, Plus, back in 1981, Tom took over. He made sure he got the permission from Betty, and Betty's like, "Of course, you're a great guy, you can do this." And, he, of course, did a great job and kept it on for another year.
And then
Um,
Bert Convy did it for a while too, right? Password
Bert
Plus, and
Convy
then
did
he
it when it
passed.
became Super Password back in, the mid-1980s, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Mm.
yeah, and,
Lost him too soon, right?
yes, yes, we did again, but, it was great fun.
And they
The
were
game
all
show,
on the Love Boat.
yeah,
Fantasy
yeah,
Island, Love Boat, all of these people
yeah,
we're
yeah,
talking about
yeah,
usually would go through the Love Boat and
yeah. The game show Congressman, I think there's some clips of them there. They were great. They were, designed to celebrate the, artists that never got really celebrated that much. For a long time, there were no Emmys given out to daytime performers until the mid 1970s, so that missed a lot of them. And, and so it was a great way to do tributes to a lot of them. Oh yeah, my Emmy winning award 1970. This was before everything else. This was another book that I got the idea from when I was again looking through, the complete directory to primetime TV shows, and I noticed that, there were only about 100 or shows that were had won the best, best game show, best, talk show, best variety show, best sitcom, any kind of that designation. And I thought, this would be fun. This would give me an opportunity to talk about those shows in depth, as well as see some of them I'd never seen before. And, I enjoyed researching this a great deal. I was able to talk to a guy, I think, who wrote for the Ed Wynn show back in the 1940s, and getting them together. I was able to do my, update some things about Red Skelton in there because his show had won it there. This gave me a chance to talk about the shows that I mentioned before or previously: MASH, All in the Family, Mary Tyler Moore Show, Carol Burnett Show. This is the first time I really talked about it in depth, got it in there. Get Smart, and a lot of others, and, went up, through 2004. So it was, I think, The Daily Show and Development were the ones that I had there. And that was a kick, as I'd say, to get to relive some of those. And sometimes, some of the shows I'd be like, I don't see why this was, awarded.
garnered
And
all this
yeah,
attention, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And you look back, and sometimes it was, there's some sentimentality playing in there. I think Barney Miller won in its last season. That definitely played into its, getting it one time there. Some the seasons that Carol Burnett Show won for best variety, some of them I think were not its best seasons, in fact. But that's the way it goes, and you just, tell about it. And it was, a nice, book for me to write. Enjoying to talk about all the, talented people and their efforts to make great classic TV.
You mentioned Carol Burnett.
Yes.
Yes, you were with us when we celebrated her
Yeah.
90th anniversary with the incredible Chris Corman, son of
Yep.
Harvey Corman,
Yep.
dear friend who was with us. He's
Mhm.
watching as well, and he said hello. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Great. Hey,
And
Chris.
tell us about this one. We mentioned it during that show, but
Yeah.
now we have some time to really tell people what it's all about.
What it's all about is basically it's, covering the show, everything I could do about the show from its beginnings, origins, through its legacy up to today. I tried to make it as thorough as possible. I talked to everyone, associated in different capacities with the show. I talked to, Fred Silverman and Mike Dan, the programmers at CBS, about where they placed it and what it was like working with the show there at the time. I talked to as many as the writers as I could. The writers, it was a big show for writers. Every writer worked on it said, once they knew you worked on the Burnett Show, you were pretty much guaranteed a job anywhere because it had such a great reputation for being so writer friendly. Like I said, Randy Doney and some of the dancers on the show, I got to interview them about, how they came up each week with doing a number, which is just incredible nowadays to think that they could do that. And some of the other musicians involved in the series as well, how they contributed and what was going on in their world. Several of the guest stars, their experiences and what they enjoyed about the show. Um, and it was just a really, it was like I said, when I was growing up in the '70s, it was a book that I thought I'd love for their book to be about that, but I didn't think you could ever do it because it ran so long and there were so many shows. And like a fool, I decided, yep, I'm going to do it and get them all there. And I did it. It was a challenge, and it's a you'll see anyone who sees it knows that's pretty small print, get a lot of that information in there, but I think it's worthy of it there. And it was just great watching a lot of shows I never seen and revisiting them and seeing this is how this one works, and like several people said, it was just the best variety show ever, you know,
Yeah,
and
really. Yeah,
was yeah,
absolutely. Right. And the
yeah,
whole Harvey Korman, Tim Conway thing,
mhm,
just the off the script, off the cuff stuff and the
yeah,
laughter and all the things
yeah.
that weren't necessarily planned that ended up happening.
Yeah, yeah, and
Best
it
moments.
yeah, it was loose, you could felt like you were part of the family. That was what I said, the big thing about it was that you felt like you were there, having fun with some people who are related to you and getting it together. And as we said before, but it can't hurt to say again, yeah, there's where I that was the first photo I've got in the book of Carol when she was on the Gary Moore show, and she won an Emmy for her work there, and he won the Emmy for Outstanding Variety Series at the time. This
Mm,
is what led to Carol deciding to go on her own, and she had a lawyer with her who put uh, a deal together with Mike Dan, who was nervous because this was the first time he had to deal with making a contract with talent at CBS. And CBS was very rich on talent. They had Ed Sullivan, Jackie Gleason, as mentioned, and so on there. So Carol was negotiating a contract for CBS for specials and so on there, and her lawyer put in a proviso that within the first 5-year period, there would be an option for Carol to do her own variety show, 30 weeks guaranteed on the network. And Mike Dan didn't exactly know how, or maybe it slipped by him. He wasn't sure exactly, but it got into the um, the deal that she had there with CBS. Well, the next couple of years, she did do specials for them and guest shots and everything, but by the time they were living out in California in the around Christmas time in 1966, she and her husband said, we're not getting as much stuff there. We really could use some kind of steady income. And then they're like, oh wait, yeah, we have that thing in the contract. We can get a series deal with CBS. So they called up Mike Dan, and Mike was like, oh, okay. And he checked it out. I was like, yep, I've got to do it there. So as he said there, he was pretty honest. He said, I could have put them on there Saturday mornings at 10 o'clock if I wanted to, to do it. But he gave them a rather tough time slot. It was believed at the time. It was Monday nights at 10, where CBS had not had hits in like 6 or 7 years. And it was opposite I Spy on NBC
right.
and The Big Valley on ABC with Barbara Stanwyck. Well, to everyone's surprise, the series did do well enough that it finished in the top 30 in its first year. It was a struggle for them to do that because a lot of CBS affiliates did not carry it at Mondays at 10. Believe it or not, they thought it was a time slot they weren't sure of. They weren't sure about Carol being a star of a variety series, even though she'd been on Gary Moore's as a supporting act. Eventually, they came around. The show got the first of every year it was on the air. It was nominated for Outstanding Variety Series, which is a rarity um, for TV shows to do there. And it just had a life of its own. Over the years, it was able to survive 4 different time slots. But as I said, the last year without when Harvey went on his own to do his own special, it was not the same show because they were trying to write the show as if he was still there with Dick Van Dyke and Ken Berry and some others. And Carol kind of knew it, and it's like she decided let's end it now before the network forces us to
Does it
sign off.
themselves, right?
Yeah, yeah. Cancel yourself before the network cancels you, which was a smart maneuver on her
Yeah.
part, I
Uh,
believe at the time.
There's another great one too. Television's Top 100, the most watched American broadcasts from
Yeah,
1960 to 2010.
yeah.
With your full-time career, how did you have time to do these quizzes? He has a whole other career,
Yeah.
IBM
Well,
and
you make time to take time, or take time to make time. I'm not sure how it goes, but
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I know how to pace myself, and know what things I'm looking for, so it helps some there. For this one, this was going to be all the shows that were Nielsen's highest rated shows, and by that I meant like the highest rated episode of Here's Lucy, the highest rated episode of All in the Family, that sort of thing. The ones that got the highest ratings for them, and that included covering the movies that were big on the time before the 1980s. It was a big deal when a movie had its network TV premiere,
the movie
and
of the week.
yeah, yeah, and so that was about. I had several inches of Love Story, The Poseidon Adventure, Airport, The Birds. That was a big hit when it came on TV as well. That was fun researching and talking about a lot of those shows and getting the stories behind them, and how they went on the air. And that one was especially challenging because we had. I'll give you an inside thing. Basically, it was the last time I dealt with my publisher, and they delayed it a couple of months for whatever reason. I wasn't too happy about that. They had one guy also saying, maybe we could beef this up and have some more, and maybe you could add like 17 more series. And he asked this to me in early November. And I said, so you want me to do for free, investigate some more series during the holiday season, and the belief that you think it will make it more saleable, and we can't call it Television's Top 100 anymore. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. I won't take that offer.
Right.
um, so that involved me going to my other publisher after that sort of thing. But I'm still very proud of the book. It got a lot of good reviews, and it was rather interesting to see what shows were, um, what were the highest rated shows, and trying to explain why they were high rated at the time there. It was pretty interesting. The highest rated Super Bowl, in fact, was able to find out it was, I think, the San Francisco Giants playing in 1983, and part of it had to do with, it was like one of the coldest Sundays ever. A lot of snow on the ground for everyone there, and it was, even by Super Bowl standards, it was amazing. I think they had 91% of um, all residents in San Francisco were watching that Super Bowl at the time there, which was, amazing. You can't imagine something like that today, even with the Super Bowl, although it still remains the top watched event on TV every year.
It really still is.
Yep.
Absolutely
Yep.
right.
Yep.
The other thing too, you mentioned Super Bowl and dabbling in the sports world a little bit, kicking off the week. This is so cool.
Yeah, when Monday
Hey,
Night
sports
Football,
fans.
yeah,
Yeah,
when it went off of ABC, when they announced that, that's when I held up my publisher and said, "How about doing a history of that?"
because
And
that
said,
is
"Yes."
iconic. It was
Yeah.
really Rune Arledge that sort of got that off the
Yeah.
ground, right? On
Yeah.
ABC. Yeah.
And ironically enough, you won't believe it, and I still have a hard time believing it, but his son went to UNC Greensboro at the same time I did. In fact, at the same dorm, but we didn't really hang out that much. But anyway, this was interesting because Monday Night Football, the concept had been played on CBS a couple of times during the 1960s. They were thinking about it. And then, but CBS was like, well, we don't want to make this a habit because Monday nights we've got Lucille Ball and we've got Doris Day and Carol Burnett, and they are all doing very well for us. So ABC, which has been doing horrible on Monday nights, they're like, yes, let's take this. We'll get this on here. There. Originally, they were doing it with Howard Cosell, and it was not Frank Gifford. It was, I'm going to hate myself for it.
Don Meredith.
Not Don Meredith was part of that too, but the announcer was. He later did a lot of the sports casting where they did like fumble. Oh well. Anyway, it was another one. He went off that Keith Jackson. Keith Jackson.
Keith Jackson,
Yeah.
yes.
So they replaced him when Frank Gifford became available for them. Frank Gifford been calling football games on CBS, but to
And Al
make him feel
Michaels was eventually a part of it
yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. So for Keith Jackson, they gave him the NCAA football games, and that's where he became a legend there. For Monday Night Football, it was Howard and Frank and Don Meredith, but they had a lot of stuff backstage. Howard was never really wild about Frank Gifford being in the booth, never very complimentary about him. And then Dandy Don Meredith, he seemed to have sort of an interest in the show, but when NBC convinced him to get an exclusive contract with him, he left after 3 or 4 years,
Hmm.
and did that. And the show stumbled about. There was always a thing with chemistry and going on with what they had that way. To
Were you
some
the one that
people,
sang "The Party's Over"?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it
he
made
was
that
the one. Yeah,
popular.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was it still was a big moneymaker for ABC for a long time. The problem was for the network, when it ended, ended in December, so that left you the rest of the season. You'd had to program something, and usually the shows that came on mid-season weren't able to match the ratings that they had there. It made it difficult. It also made it difficult in that here on the East Coast, you had to have a show that aired before it on, from 8 to 9 on Monday nights, and that same show would have to air after the football game in on the West Coast and later areas. So you'd have to have a show that appealed to, both kind of adults and children, and it was very hard for them to do that until I think MacGyver was probably the one that they finally got that worked for them there. But they had other things like the San Pedro Beach Bombs, and Nanny and the Professor. It was
Remember Nanny and the Professor? And
yeah, yeah. They had a real struggle going on for that for a while. So, but that was like I said, a lot of good fun to do that. I talked to Alex Karras and some of the other ones who were working at the time there, and everyone, everyone seems to have different memories about the show and different characters and everything, but it was a lot of fun, basically
yeah.
saying it like that, and I'm
And of
glad I
course,
do it.
yeah, absolutely. And on the cover there, of course, is John Madden,
Yes, John
who was,
Madden.
with Pat Summerall on CBS every Sunday for
Yeah,
years,
yeah,
former football pro. Just lost him just a couple years ago.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, more, some other stuff going back. There's a
Oh
great shot
yeah,
you sent along with Bob Hope, huh?
yes. This is one I mentioned. Gloria Loring um, gave me a reel of some pictures. She was very nice. Gloria's been wonderful. I've talked with her for several books and everything. She's like, "Yeah, you want some? I've got that." So this is one of Bob in Vietnam in I think 1969, 1970, when he's there meeting with the troops backstage that she took with him there, and so that. So yeah, he was wearing a baseball cap off
Mhm.
stage, taking it easy with what they had going on there. Those shows were just tough on everyone involved. They'd
Oh,
either
yeah.
have bitter cold or
The
or
logistics
yeah,
alone,
they'd
yeah.
get sunburned from the heat.
And there's
Um,
risk involved. I mean, you're going into areas where, a lot is
yeah,
going on.
yeah, and it was very telling watching the specials each year because you could tell. Bob admitted in one of them is like, I had no idea this conflict was going to last so long and cause so much damage, but we've got to hold it out, and everything. And he stood through it at the same time when a lot of the American public was going against the war.
Right.
And it
Yeah.
was it was a big
Interesting
effort by
times.
him to do that. Yeah, But
Yeah,
like Gloria said, she's like, I wouldn't have. It was just an incredible experience, to have done that.
absolutely. And this one with Betty back in the 50s, Betty
Oh
White.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. When this was one of her shots there, kind of relaxing between doing working on Life with Elizabeth. I think you can tell that kind of
Hmm.
background set they had there going at the time there. She was doing Life at Elizabeth at the same time. She was doing either the daytime show or on in LA, or later the network show on NBC. And it's just how she managed that schedule. I will never know.
Mm,
But she was a dedicated workaholic, as she really enjoyed doing it and being part of the medium. She could memorize lines very quickly and get them together. And incredibly, she was told back in the 1940s that she wasn't photogenic enough for movies and so on that way. So, for a long time, the only movie credit she had was Advise and Consent in 1963, and it was basically like a cameo with her playing a senator there. She didn't have really started doing a lot of movies until the 1990s, by the time when she was in her 70s, which is just
right.
incredible. But she was hardworking, very pleasant to work with. For everyone who loved working with her at the time there. She knew her lines quickly. When she did the Mary Tyler Moore Show that first week, Valerie Harper said she was nervous because she's already memorized the script. Oh my gosh, she knows the script. And they were going over. It's like she's got it memorized before the rest of them had it there. And she did that partially because she did wear glasses, and she didn't want to have to. She didn't really rely on the teleprompter at all. She basically memorized as much as she could. If she couldn't, then she had the script person come by and say, tell her what it was there. And my gosh, the number of series. The only woman who comes close to her as with the being a regular as much as she was Cloris Leachman, her co-star there on Mary Tyler Moore Show. But even Cloris couldn't claim do what Betty did and host her own talk show and host her own game show. And Betty could and did it all.
Kind of like a Dick Clark in a way,
Yeah.
versatility. Right,
Yes. Yes.
exactly. You had
Yeah.
people who could host and do everything. They were
Yeah.
entertainers, all
Yeah. And
around entertainers.
she did. Dick Clark did a daytime show called Scattergories, and she was one of the guests there on film. And when he just introduced her, he said, "This is one of the most incredible women you'll ever meet. She's got a fast mind and everything." He
Mhm.
he appreciated her greatly as well. Yeah, ever since
Yeah,
they started working together, she did a lot of the $25,000 pyramid back in the 1980s. And they had a real rapport with each other. They really respected each other. She worked with just about everyone in show business. It was
she
it
really
was
did.
incredible.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
the things they said about her when she passed were just extraordinary. You could hear and realize how beloved Betty White was on so many different levels. Do you remember that short-lived Guys TV series that was a daytime series talk show
yes,
that was on
just for men.
NBC?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and was it called The Other Side, or was it something like that?
No,
Or
it was called no, no, Just Men. I'm sorry, it was called Just Men. That was the name of it there with
Dick
her hosting.
Clark,
Oh, the Dick Clark one. Okay,
Mario
yeah. The Other
Lopez,
Side. Yeah, that one. Yes, yes.
Danny Bonaducci,
Yeah.
and I forgot there was a doctor. There was somebody that was on as well. So it was
Yeah.
Danny Bonaducci. What an interesting mix. Danny Bonaducci, I think Mario Lopez, Dick Clark, and the other guy, I can't remember
I
him.
can't remember either.
And we send our, best wishes to Danny Bonaducci because I believe he's having some sort of major
Yeah.
surgery right now. So sending the best to him. But that was a short-lived male version of The View
Yep.
on
Hmm.
ABC to counter The View a little bit with the male side of things. It didn't
Yep.
last very long.
No, it didn't. And uh, surprisingly, you think with a bunch of men on there, it'd be a attraction for a female audience, but who knows? You never know these things, you
Exactly
know.
right. Yeah, exactly right. What's surprised you the most about all of the things that you've uncovered, discovered, researched, and just shared with all of us over these years of these
Mm.
10 books with an 11th coming, which is exciting, huh?
Well, what have I learned? I learned that it's, you know, talent's a great deal to do with getting successful in the entertainment industry, but it's also timing, being at the right place at the right time, being willing to do what's necessary and know who to contact and use that sort of information together. Um, and it's also being resourceful. I do remember um, learning the song "The Guitar Man" by Bread. I was doing that for the number one adult contemporary hits book, and David Gates, there, the lead singer, admitted that at the end, when there's an audience cheering and everything, it was actually a taped recording of a concert of The Doors. And if you listen to the song, you can hear at the end the guy announcing "The Doors" in background. And I went, "Oh my gosh, I did not know that." It's always good to hear people bring you some insights that you're like, that they had not shared previously for whatever reason. And it's always, to me, it's just been fun and interesting finding these things out, because you can't find these things out by looking at Wikipedia. You can't find them by going to AI. If you're going to that, you've got to talk to the people involved and know what know what about what they've done professionally, and
Mhm.
then fill in the blanks of what's going on that way, and make a good impression, because it's always a good interview. I'm sure you've heard it before. We're like, "Oh, you know about me, you know this stuff," and you're like, "Yes, I do," because I've been on the other side where I've seen it, where the people basically have not done their homework, let's put it that way, and
Exactly right.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and get it there, that going that way. So I'd say that's what I've kind of taken away, and I've kind of, it's made me kind of happy to get this kind of niche in my life to illuminate things and appreciate things in the entertainment realm.
That's what I was gonna say. It's probably given you a deeper appreciation
Yeah,
of, an industry that you've always followed and enjoyed
yeah,
and immersed yourself in as a kid. And maybe not that there isn't some disappointment, or maybe
hmm,
there was idealism and then it turned out to be not really what was presented. I mean, we've all, any of us in these industries, we see that side of things too as
yeah,
well. But overall, just a real appreciation for what it takes to do what is done, what is presented on television and
yeah,
film
yeah,
and stage and music and
and make
all
it
of it,
look
really.
easy,
Make it look
like,
effortless and
yeah,
easy, right?
yeah. It's like what you do here, everybody's like, "Oh, he just shows up on camera and he's ready to talk," and that's all the thing. They don't see all the pre-production work you have to do and the planning and everything. Well, I think some of them probably know and get an idea of what's going on there. But there's a lot of that involved, and is needed to make it a success, a lot of these uh, areas that the things I've noticed when researching the history of these shows, they basically had a good idea at the outset what they wanted to do and who they wanted to involve and get them together, and they weren't rushed for time. I think that's been a problem with some of the things we've had lately, is that it seems like the deals are made for things to happen or people to be involved, and it just, okay, let's hurry up and get it together, without taking the time and the effort to really think what would be best here, what do we need to do to make this a long-lasting success, rather than a faddish type thing.
We've talked a lot about lists that others have made about favorite shows, top shows, things of that nature. What is Wesley Hyatt's top 10 or five favorite television shows and series?
Well, I've got to say, of course, the Carol Burnett Show. I love watching the Golden Girls too. Mary Tyler Moore Show, All in the Family, MASH, Twilight Zone as well.
Mm.
I like watching. I've enjoyed watching the Tonight Show and Letterman's uh, YouTube channel is very well too. Got a lot of good guests and um, things like that. I do tend to go for the vintage TV things. It's just it's a challenge for me, a person like me who grew up when it was, basically ABC, CBS, and NBC, to try and wade through and go through. Okay, what's all right? That sounds interesting. Okay, wait, is that on Netflix or Amazon Prime or
Or
Hulu or
Hulu
yeah,
or
or then and then to go through it, or if I can't remember what it is, let me. If I put in the actor's name, I have to search. It's it's not a fun process, to get that sometime, and it brings out the bad tendencies. I the thing I disliked when I was doing the book is I basically was doing the binge watching before binge watching was a thing. I would have to, like Carol Burnett Show, I'd go out to UCLA and watch the shows back to back
hmm
from like when the library opened to when it closed. And, that
right.
was the way they had that done there. And, they take the time and the effort and, you just have to pace yourself, that sort of thing, and make sure that you're not getting worn out. It seems weird, you're going to get worn out by watching too much TV, but yeah, it can happen that way. And I don't want to have that replicated in my leisure time as much as possible. I want to, I do like watching TV when I can, but I like doing other things and going to concerts and clubs and social events with friends, do everything in moderation, I guess you could say.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So you have so there is an 11th book in the
Yes, there is.
offing. That's
Yes, this one I just sold a couple of weeks ago to my publisher. Its title, I think we're going to go with it, is "I'd Like to Buy a Vowel: Spinning 50 Years of Wheel of Fortune."
wow,
Wheel of
that's gotta
Fortune
be
will
great.
be 50 years old come January 4th, 1975, when it debuted on the NBC daytime schedule. I think it's got a good backstory about its history. It was basically put on as a replacement for Jeopardy because the head of NBC programming thought it was too boring a show and had a deal with Merv Griffin where he had to have another show in replacement, and that's what that was. And it missed being canceled a couple times on NBC before it really broke out in the 1980s and
Didn't
with its
Chuck
time.
Woolery host it as well in
Chuck
the
Woolery
beginning?
hosted it for 6 years. Yes, for
Yeah.
6 years. And
People
some
remember him
people,
from The Love Connection. He used to host The
yeah,
Love Connection, yeah.
he got so when he did the game show Debt, I think it was Debt, was that back
Oh,
in the
yes.
there
Yes.
was a category on TV history, and one of the persons was asked which game show did Chuck Woolery not host, and the person said. Wheel of Fortune. Oh, he never hosted that. I know that, and he locked it in.
Oh,
Chuck's like, "That was my first game show I hosted. How did you not remember it?" You know. But Pat Sajak has become so identified with the show. It's
what, what a host gig
yeah,
for a personality. Of course,
yeah,
he took a stab at the late night on CBS. The Pat Sajak Show did that as well, and
yeah,
Tom Scott and Dave Koz, they're
yeah,
all, of course, prolific jazz musicians,
yeah,
were in the band.
yeah,
But what a gig to have had, that
yeah.
show for decades.
Yeah, I'm getting a hold of some people who are contestants on there. I'm looking forward to talking to them and getting again the whole story behind it. The behind the scenes and what's gone on there. It's not too much controversy, but there has been some efforts like their efforts to try and make other hits. It was the main hit that Merv Griffin had apart from his talk show, and he did try a couple of other game shows later on, and they didn't work out.
Jeopardy.
He did Jeopardy. He revived and paired it with it, and that's good. But in the late, there was he did a TV version of Monopoly that was really bad
Oh,
in
yeah.
1990 that
Yeah,
bombed, and a couple of others. There was also a Saturday morning version of Wheel of Fortune.
that's
I
right.
th- so I want to get into that. It should be good. It should be a fun one to talk. Like I said to many people, my last book was on Betty White, and I'm like, Betty White is very hard to top. It was a fun book to write, still a fun book for me to read, fun to research. Yeah, and it was TV history in a nutshell. And I'm like, what could be more than that? But it occurred to me when I came up, oh yeah, Wheel of Fortune's coming up with 50 years. That's a landmark. The only other game show that's done that so far has been Price is Right.
Price is Right. Yeah.
And and that one, I I don't want to do a book on them. I think I'm happier doing one on Wheel of Fortune, just because it's more in my wheelhouse, no pun intended. Plus, I think it'll be a very, very sellable thing because I'll get this done by about this time next year, and then it'll be ready, to go in time in coordination with the 50th anniversary and get some good press that way.
That's so incredible, isn't it? When you think about it,
Yeah. It's
it's
very rare for a game show, especially, to run 50 years. It's always been thought of like as the filler or the lesser, thing because of even back in the 1950s. I saw Fred Silverman's thesis paper that he had about ABC's programming practices, and he basically considered the game shows they had on at nighttime to be filler until they got real shows on there. So yeah,
yeah, it's it.
it's amazing.
Iconic.
And you probably don't know this, maybe you do, but the one of the hosts they tested out along with Chuck Woolery in the original was none other than Ed Kooky Burns.
Oh
Was
yeah.
later was the MC in Grease, that sort of thing, but also was best known as playing Kooky on 77 Sunset Strip. He actually did a pretty good job, but I think Merv wanted to go with more of a unknown quantity that Chuck Woolery was at the time. He'd been a minor country artist and done a little TV, mainly on Merv's show, and it was a good mix. As is Sajak for the show. He's really been an excellent host.
I think Merlin's asking how long
Yeah.
has Jeopardy been on? That has been on because it was originally on before the Alex Trebek
Yeah.
version, right?
Jeopardy was on NBC daytime from 1964 until 1975 when it went off because of Wheel of Fortune. Then they tried to revive it in 1979, but they did some format changes that people weren't happy with, and it went off there on NBC. Then, with Wheel of Fortune becoming a success in syndication in 1983, they were able to pair up Jeopardy with it the following year with Alex Trebek. So it's been on since 1984 in its current version, and yeah, it's pretty good. I guess you probably someone was asking why do a book on Jeopardy, but I like that would really be a lot to me to cover that show's entire history,
That
and
would
I'd want to
be
do that.
intense. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
really have to. It was for I think for both Betty White and I think for all the last three books with Betty White, Bob Hope, and Carol Burnett, I promised my publisher no more than 150,000 words, and I had to go back and cut down as much as possible to meet those things. Like, yeah, for both Betty White and Carol Burnett, I think I was thinking covering their work on commercials, but I was like, well, they had a lot there and something's got to go. So that had to go, on these things. Carol Burnett, I thought maybe there won't be enough. Maybe I should talk about her summer replacement shows. Well, I found out there was plenty to talk about. So I just mentioned them at the end of every season. Like, she was going to be this year, she'll be preempted by the Wild Wild West reruns. And
Right.
coincidentally, where Harvey Korman was a guest star on one of them,
That's
so
it. Remember
yeah.
why the Paul Lynde show was created? Because they wanted to wrap up Bewitched.
Hmm.
And ABC there was a contract with ABC that still had
Yep.
to be fulfilled. So they grabbed Paul Lynde, who played Uncle Arthur on the series anyway, and they developed a short-lived show, but a show to sort of finish out the contract they had with
Yep.
ABC. And,
Yep.
I've watched reruns of it. I think it's Antenna TV or Decades, one of them. I, I, I know they've said it didn't go well or didn't last or take
Hmm.
because people don't see Paul Lynde as a central figure. They see him as the Uncle Arthur or
Yeah.
just the supporting figure. But there was something about that show when we watched the reruns on the nostalgic channels. Well, I almost wish it did last a little bit longer because I thought it was there was a lot of humor in it. And just
Yeah.
he was just Paul Lynde is Paul Lynde.
Yeah, well, they had it. It was in a tough time slot. It was opposite Carol's show there for that year it was on, and it also I think it was opposite Adam 12 on NBC, which was still a big hit. So it had a lot
Tough
there going for it.
competition,
Yeah, it was
both of
given there
them.
because they had a high expectation because he had been doing so well, and by that time when it premiered, Hollywood Squares was the number one show on daytime TV as well. So they thought he'd be a big
Give him a show.
success going that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what it was. It was a case of high expectations. I think I talked to Bill Asher about it there. He's just like, it was just not, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was just not as much as they'd hoped for. It was just, I think everyone had high expectations and it didn't meet them. And when that happens, sometimes that can knock a show off the air too.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly
Yeah.
right. And you've got a whole day job too.
Yeah, I took a leave a little earlier. I work for IBM as a marketing writer there, and it's been very nice working for them. And I uh, do that. I write in the morning and afternoon. And in the evenings, I write as well. So I got that bug on me, to go
Do you
and
ever
get
pause
together.
from it and break from writing just to sort of
Yeah,
refresh, reboot?
yeah, yeah. I mean, there are periods when I'm like, if I've got something a lot that's coming out of my head, I like, okay, do a good time. And it's a lot of times I'm keeping stuff like I having notes and like, okay, I'm just typing these notes in here and I'll figure out how to get it worked in eventually into the narrative when I get it done there. Because some of my books, it I don't do like I said with the Betty White one. I decided it was be more useful to divide it up into different chapters. Like I had to do two different chapters about her work at game shows. That's how big it was. That's how many appearances she had on game shows because I was trying to list not only her appearances but also what the game was about at each time there. So I did that as well. And at the end, I put the most exhaustive list of Betty White's game shows I think anybody's ever seen in their lives chronologically, and it was it was quite a quite an accomplishment there. I think when you read the appendix at my book where I list the shows where she was a regular and a semi-regular, and she was a guest star on these variety shows and these talk shows, and the talk shows alone, I stopped at 100 talk show appearances because I didn't want it to overwhelm it there. I said these are just a sample, but I did want to game shows because she was beloved. When we had the game show Congress and Betty White was introduced, we started chanting, all of us fans who were at the dinner was going, Betty, Betty, Betty. It was just because, she had a respect for the genre. She'd been doing it for so long. She
Yeah.
did game shows, from she everywhere from the 1950s up to she was doing To Tell the Truth a couple years ago before she passed away in 2016, I think, or so.
Exactly
Yeah,
right. Yeah, she
incredible.
truly an American
Yes,
treasure, one of the most recognizable faces on television,
yes,
Betty White,
yeah,
on so many
yeah,
levels. So
yeah,
this is amazing. I want to let folks know too that these everything we're talking about here are available at Amazon, right? That's where they can
yes.
go.
I have my own author page. If you write Wesley Hyatt, and that's like the hotel Hyatt, you can visit my author page and see what I've summarized about myself, and get the link to all the books there that I've got there. Some of them are in Kindle form, so if you want to get them that way, that's fine too. That's very affordable. Just be prepared; it's going to be a long read on some of those on Kindle. I'll tell you that much. But please check it out. And like I said, by this time next year, um, I'll at least have submitted my manuscript, and then it'll take a couple of months, to get with the formatting and everything like that. But it should be out by in time for Christmas to do the book on the Wheel of Fortune, and I think it'll be another fun read. Like I'm trying to do, I try and make it informative and fun, and very helpful for everybody. And you also may know my name sometime. They've used a lot of my books as sources on Wikipedia, which is ego boost, and
That's right.
yeah, so
That's
that's
it.
that's good. Yeah,
Steve Bird watching. Oh, that's right. He's right there. He says, Greed, Chuck Woolery.
Greed, yes.
Yes.
Oh, that
Fox
was
early
yes.
2000s. It was
I
on
got my
Fox.
I
And
got my
Debt
Chuck
was
and
Wink
my wing.
Martindale on Lifetime Cable. And
Yes.
I don't know if anybody saw that episode, but Wink Martindale and Sandra Martindale, his lovely wife, were guests on the Jim Masters Show Live series. We went over Wink's epic career and Sandy's. You can see that episode archived on our YouTube channel. And happy birthday a couple of days ago to Jerry Mathers, the bee from Leave It to Beaver. He was a guest on our show not that long ago as well. Steve, good memory there with the
Yes.
game
Thank you, Steve.
shows.
Yes. Sorry about
Debt,
that oversight.
greed. Sometimes greed leads to debt.
Yeah.
In
Oh,
life.
yeah. Yeah. I know it's such a blur sometimes of all the things I've got in my
Debt,
head. I'm like,
greed.
okay,
Now they have to come up
something.
with a new one called inflation.
Yeah. If they haven't already,
If they
yeah,
haven't already.
So
Why do you love doing this? What are some of the blessings and joys in your life? I usually like to ask the guests that really, propel you to want to take the time and document all of this for our knowledge building, but also our pleasure and entertainment, Wesley.
well, I like it because that gives me a chance to talk to these people one on one, and usually about memories they generally like, and haven't shared about that. Some of them are not the big names that you'd say that most talk shows go after and so on there, so they really haven't been um, investigated that much, and I like getting their perspective and getting their knowledge and insights and collecting them there is just very fulfilling to me. There's always a point when I'm doing my book when I've done a certain interview and I'm like, okay, at this point, it's all gravy. I've gotten enough information. This is great that I'm going to, everything else I've got is just going to make it icing on the cake, to speak like that. Because I, I guess I'm kind of methodical in knowing the people that I want to get and who I'd like to interview and get a good sense of every aspect of a TV show. It's not just the performers on stage. There are a lot of people behind them stage are
That
really,
that's
you
yeah.
know, getting them together.
Creators,
And
think it, the
yeah,
writers, the
yeah,
producers, directors. It
yeah.
takes a village to put it all together.
Yeah, it does. It's not, and it's, TV is best known as a producer's medium. I
Yeah,
wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but there's a good amount of production that does fall into that area there. Um, you get a different perspectives, you get different appreciations from the people who direct TV shows, the things that they went through and getting things together that they had to account for, doing shows like this live or on film and having to make sure they've got certain segments to match together. Uh, and making sure. I talked to one of the directors on the Golden Girls, and he was very much of the opinion that directors should be part of the casting decision, that they're not nowadays. In terms of, and I think that does make a difference for getting a show that directors can tell them, okay, this person, I want them because they do this, that, and the other, and this is what we need in this role for this thing, not
yeah,
someone that's like hot and everything, and you can obviously tell are miscast for the
exactly.
things.
Did you see where I was seeing it on one of the, I don't know if it was CBS, it was CBS Saturday morning this past weekend, where so many of the iconic artifacts from television are going up on auction, like the
Yeah,
entire All in the Family set
yeah,
and the outfit that Jeannie wore, and I Dream of Jeannie, and the bottle, and like all these things that I thought were in the Smithsonian.
yeah. Well, here's the thing: the Smithsonian asks for people to donate what they have on these things, and they're able to get them that way. The Smithsonian, to my knowledge, does not pay for them, other than maybe the cost of shipping and handling, and maybe not even that, because that's the way they've run it for years for getting their collection, and it's the prestige of being the Smithsonian. Apparently, the person involved is a collector who got spent money on all these things. There's been some controversy that I've heard that some people claim that he was getting them and going to put them in a museum, and now he's turned around and going to be selling them at auction to get them that way. Um, I'm not sure about that whole circumstance. All I do know is that yes, they are getting astronomical prices, and that's because people have a lot of attachment to these series and everything, more than I think some people know.
I wish they were
I
in like the Museum of Broadcasting
yeah,
or something for everybody to go and see and enjoy.
yeah, yeah. But it's well, at the same time, these museums, they've got to pay their bills, they've got upkeep, and they have limited amount of space. And it was sad and depressing, but I understood it when the Paley Center for Media closed its doors in Beverly Hills, because it was just so expensive to have where they were staying at, and to keep that collection preserved where it's at. It's a lot to do. It costs a lot. I'm sure UCLA has a lot of good fundraisers. It's able to keep its films preserved, but it's a big effort nowadays.
It really is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I don't know in the future if people are going to. People are like, well, why can't you just watch online and everything? Well, not everything they can transfer together is online. There's a lot of stuff that even the Library of Congress, I've been there. Some of the material they have there is on film that would cost a lot for them to transfer to video for you to watch and see in person there too. Sad to say, we've not been very generous about our care about our television history
I
in this
know.
country a lot.
Well, we celebrate it here, and so does Gilligan
Yes.
with love from Dream of Denver, who has been a
Oh,
guest
yeah.
multiple
Nice.
times here on the show. And he says hello, Gilligan, Bob Denver. Love this episode in particular, as did, of course, got to have George Burns, right?
George, yes,
We cannot
yes,
do it without the iconic George Burns and his cigar and his red hanky. He sends
yes.
his best. And hey, they think that they're going to auction off that genie bottle. Well, we are all set on this end. And she's in
That's
there.
good to know.
She's napping. She's this is quite heavy. She's
I
napping, and
can
of course,
imagine.
people. This was a gift actually from a dear friend who contacted the people that were custom making these, and it was a wonderful gift to get several
Yeah,
years ago. And the for those who, of course, but wonder how did the design even come about for the I, Jim and Jeannie TV series? That was the Jim Beam liquor bottle that was there that
yeah.
they sort of patterned the genie bottle after, which
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
kind of cool, huh?
Yeah, very much so, yeah. I
Yeah.
love getting inside stories like that, as much as I can, and finding different things about the series and how they go that way.
Do you have any collectibles and artifacts yourself?
I actually do, not too many. I got from Bob Bowden, who is a big game show executive.
Oh,
He gave
sure.
me
Yes, I met him
yes.
when we were up in New Hampshire, um, seeing John Davidson performing at his place, Club Sandwich. And John Davidson's a friend of the show and been
Yes,
on the show
yes.
several times.
Yeah.
And that's when I met Bob. And because produced Bob and Steve Grant together there. Bob, I think, produced shows with John Davidson as host or
Mhm.
involvement with John. That's how they
He
all know
yeah.
each other.
He's working on, Funny You Should Ask right now, I believe, on, for Byron Allen. I met him. I was doing a show last year, and he gave me some, he's working on there's a game show section in New York. I can't remember it offhand. I'm gonna hate myself. I wasn't prepared to tell you that. But anyway, it's working with a museum about collecting memorabilia for game shows, and he gave me a couple of the Card Sharks cards.
Card
The one,
Sharks, yes.
yeah, higher, lower, and that sort of thing,
Yes.
and a couple of the sample cards that they would have on reading from Family Feud as well. What they'd have printed out. Name a and so that's nice memorabilia.
That's
But for
very cool.
me, as I say, the main thing I collect is the time and the information with the celebrities, and I always make sure I thank them and respect them for what they are.
Yeah,
Sometimes
absolutely. Yes.
it's some of them really give a lot more than you expect, and that's always very nice as well. But I try and just keep my expectations reasonable, and usually it's been fine. And for the most part, I've got to tell people, yeah, you don't get everyone you want, but usually the ones you do, you do.
It's magic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It really
It
is.
is. Yeah.
And this has been too, my friend. I'm so glad that not only were you a special guest when we celebrated Carol Burnett, but also I said, why don't you come back and let's talk about all the cool things that you've done and all the people you've
Yeah.
celebrated and all the books that you've got out for people to enjoy, again, available on Amazon. And this was really a wonderful trip down memory lane and also talking about some of the iconic people that made it all happen on
Yep.
television and other forms of media and entertainment, really, and celebrating the arts. Hope you enjoyed the time with me as much as I absolutely have with you, Wesley. We're going to keep that porch light on for you. You're welcome back anytime, my friend.
Well, thank you, Jim. Thanks for having me, and thanks everyone who's joined today and taken a little bit of time out of their schedules to join us. I've appreciated the questions and the comments a great deal, and wish you all the best.
And I hope that this show met your expectations as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yes, indeed. This is great, and thanks for having me on again. I really am very honored to be here and enjoying talking with you as always.
Pleasure is all mine, my friend. Spread the word about our show. If you know
I
folks you
will.
think would like to pop on, everybody tells everybody. That's how it all works. Takes a village, as we all know. And congratulations on everything thus far, my friend, and continued success. And we'll be looking for the Wheel of Fortune celebratory book as well. And anything else you come up with, we'll have you back for that as well. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Jim.
You going to go make a sandwich now?
I guess
Or
I will.
dinner,
Yeah,
dinner,
dinner
six
time. Yeah,
o'clock, right? Six.
yeah.
We figure
6
we
on the
chat.
East Coast.
Wait, you talk about like taking time, and that's one of the reasons why I started this entertainment lifestyle celebrity talk show series, not only to pair off my or play off my career in television and radio, but also to have time to have not interviews, but conversations
Hmm.
and to go in any area, nothing scripted, no pre-prepared questions, bringing in the
Yep.
viewers watching. They're sort of the lovely viewers are like the studio audience and having great conversations, about this, that, and the other and tying it all together. And I think, sort of Cavett Carson style and bringing it in a warm way that
Hmm.
pays homage to the old school, but then with a little new vibe as well. And
Yeah.
somebody had once said, there was a guest 3 years ago, bringing back the lost art of conversation, which, I love to
Yeah.
do as well. And I
Yeah.
can't believe we hit 3 years about a week
Yeah.
ago and almost 1,000 episodes.
How many more to go to 1,000?
We are right now, we are around, just I think under 950 or so
You got any
in
big
just three
plans for the
years.
1,000, for number 1,000?
I tell you, I really we're gonna invite all those names you just listed to come on the show with you and Corman and everybody else and all the past guests. And we're gonna probably have to rent a big studio to do it. Sound good,
Yes.
huh? Let's let's
Yeah,
get, let's
good for
get to
you.
work on that.
Yeah.
Put our heads together. We've got like 50, 60 episodes before we get
Yeah,
there.
you got time to do it.
We
Yeah,
got
start
time
working
to.
on it, yeah.
But we had Loretta Swit on from MASH, and she was beautiful and
Oh,
wonderful.
good,
And she's
good.
like, Jim, MASH was on 11 years and we did 230 episodes. You're doing almost 1,003 years. I'm like, yeah, we're just having a good time here at JMS.
Yep, that's great. That's keep doing what you love. I firmly believe in that, and this is part of it. Yeah.
Kathleen Walker in New York City says, fun conversation. Thank you both. It's our
Thank you,
pleasure.
Kathleen.
Jen Berry says, Wesley, such a fun, interesting show today. Please come back soon. Love you, man. And
Oh, thank
you're
you.
also a JMS Lovety too.
Oh, okay.
I,
Wow.
isn't that
Thank you
cool?
so much.
Yeah, they've been saying that throughout the show. Like I always say,
Wow.
you can get Academy Awards, Emmys, you can get Peabodys, Tellys, Grammys, Tonys, but when you're a Lovety on the Jim Masters show, it's a pretty cool feeling, right? Are
Yeah.
your feet
Yeah.
tingling?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
and for the right reasons.
Yeah. Feet tingling. One of our guests said that he was levitating as a result. This was
Good.
great, my friend. You be well. Thanks for all the
You
time.
too.
Terrific conversation. Really.
Thank you.
Congratulations again on all the books. I encourage folks again, look for Wesley Hyatt. Go to his page on Amazon. You can get it all there and enjoy and sink your teeth in and let them know, leave a review too. Let them know you heard about
Yeah.
it on the Jim Masters Show live series. Wesley would love to hear that too. So
Yes.
you be well, my friend, and
You too.
enjoy, and we'll talk again soon. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Take
Bye.
care now. Bye-bye now. Cheers. Fade to black as we do like on television, right? Cool conversation. Wesley was a guest when we celebrated the 90th anniversary or birthday of the iconic Carol Burnett. And I said, Wesley, we should have you back because, you are into pop culture and like me, you love television and all the people involved. And you've had an opportunity to come across several of them over the years and write books about the shows and the people. And let's have you come on and do a deep dive into the books themselves and also, why you love doing what you do. And this was really fantastic. So good stuff, gang. We love you all. And thanks for being with us. This is your host, Jim Masters. Thanking you for your time this time till next time. We appreciate you being with us as well. If you enjoyed this episode, there's something you can do that helps our show grow and helps the YouTube algorithm. And that is give it a hearty like. Yes, give it a big thumbs up like on the YouTube channel, all the episodes. Give them a like, the ones you enjoy. Leave a comment underneath the episode as well. Thanks to all who left comments in the Lovely Hole chat room. We appreciate all of them. We've been sprinkling some of them on the show. As always, if you enjoy what we do, you can support us through the Super Chat, Super Emoji, Super Stickers option that's available when the shows are on live in the Lovely Hole chat room. Or you can do it anytime, 24/7. That is Super Thanks, a little heart icon called Super Thanks. That's on the YouTube channel on all the episodes. So that's cool stuff, right? We really touched upon a lot of incredible topics, and it was really, really so cool. And we appreciate our friend stopping by. Again, check him out at Amazon. You can see all the books there and get them and enjoy. Get one for, another friend or family member, that loves what we've talked about today. Wesley Hyatt, our very special guest, pop culture writer, author, expert of umpteen amount of books and in every area that we love. Really, really cool stuff. Speaking of people and things we love, some of your favorites who have been guests here on the Jim Masters Show live series, during our 3-year anniversary, they've had wonderful things that they've been celebrating about our series. People like the incomparable Lucy Arnaz, too, and so many other fantastic people we appreciate who've stopped by the show. And Lucy's coming back on June 20th. She's going to be back as a return guest. We love that. And here's what she had to say.
Hey, Jim, congratulations. That's quite a milestone. I've always enjoyed talking to you. You do a great show. Positive, optimistic, interested. You do your homework. We love being with you, and I hope we get a chance to do it again sometime. With love from Lucy Arnaz and Larry Leckenbill.
Isn't that nice? And again, if you want to see some of the others, they were broadcast during our 3-year anniversary celebration episode. You can check it out. Of course, the iconic soap opera actress and so much more, from Ryan's Hope and so many soaps. Eileen Kristen was a guest on our show, and you can see her episode in the archives on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV.
Hey, Jim and everybody out there. This is Eileen Kristen. Jim, I want to congratulate you on your 3rd anniversary of your spectacular show. I really enjoyed doing it. You ask all the right questions. You really, really, really do your homework, frighteningly so. There I was, showing up as a 18-year-old in a toothpaste commercial. So you really do your work, and I hope you have many, many more years of doing what you do. And hopefully soon, maybe I'll have something interesting to talk about again and be a guest on your show. Take care. Congratulations.
She was amazing. That was a great episode. A lot of fun, too. If you didn't see that episode, you can definitely check that out on our YouTube channel, which is the channel you're watching right now, Jim Masters TV. The iconic legendary actress Cissy Wellman, from the Waltons and so much more. Her dad, the famous Wild Bill, she was a guest, too, and she had a great time. And then she wanted to pay heed and homage and celebrate our anniversary.
Hey, Jim. Cissy Wellman here. Happy 3rd year anniversary. Bravo. And what a joy it was meeting you and being interviewed by you. And one of the main things I really love about you is your love of Hollywood. You know, I'm blessed to have been raised in it, but man, to find people that really love it the way you do, what a gift you are. You're a gift to us all. So again, happy anniversary, sweetie pie. And many more years of doing this, please. And if you notice, look who's behind me. I don't know if it's noticed, but that's my dad, Wild Bill. So, God bless, sweetie pie.
She's the best, isn't she? Really fantastic. And of course, we talked a little bit about music here on our show. And you may remember a couple of times, actually twice, Melissa Manchester was with us.
Hi, this is Melissa Manchester. Happy 3rd anniversary, Jim Masters. I'm so happy for your achievements thus far with no end in sight. I was delighted to be invited to be on your show twice, and we had a lovely time discussing my career and achievements. And what struck me was how delightful the tone was. It was not, you were not looking for any gotcha moments. You know, you, Jim, are interested apparently in restoring the art of conversation, and with that, the concept of levity, which I just find charming and encouraging and delightful. So I look forward to chatting with you again, dear Jim, and congratulations again for making a space where people can share their ideas, where you can ask thoughtful, probing questions to see how we're all doing on our paths, our parallel paths. So wishing you many, many more happy anniversaries. Long may levity wave, and you too. Be well.
The iconic Melissa Manchester. You can see those episodes archived on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV, as well. Thanks for being with us, everybody. We love you all. We don't say goodbye. We say see you later. Ciao, cheers, sláinte, shalom, sayonara, hasta la vista, hejda, moya loop. Take care. Be well. Avida zine. Cheerio. And we'll catch you on the next episode. All right. Spread the word about our show. If you enjoyed what we did here today, and this is your first time, well, join us again. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It doesn't cost anything. Spread the word. Share the links on your social media. Leave comments. And join the lovely wave here of great episodes of entertainment, lifestyle, and celebrity talk, and a lot of other surprises that we do here for all of you just about every day, as often as we can, day in and day out on the Jim Masters Show Live series. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you again soon, okay? Be well, take care. And don't forget, you don't have to go anywhere. You can binge watch almost 1,000 episodes with incredible guests. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of guests, and great commentary and interaction with our viewers, and lots of surprises on the Jim Masters Show Live series for all of you. Again, don't forget to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. One thing too is if you do that, doesn't cost anything to hit the subscribe button on YouTube. It's free. Make sure you click the notification bell icon. There's a notification bell icon. Really important to do that, because when you do that, then you'll receive our notifications about our episodes. The different times. Sometimes, they're at different times of the day based on schedules, and also usually they're at standard times, evening, but sometimes we do earlier shows based on the season, the guest, my schedule, television and radio, and just life in general, and also some surprise episodes, bonus episodes, double levity episodes, pop-up shows, themed shows, anniversaries, birthdays, holidays, things of that nature as well. So if you click the notification bell, you will never miss a thing. All right. Thanks, gang. Love you all. You guys be well. Eric, thank you. That was fun, Jim. Thanks. Love from Culver City, California. Thank you very much. SoCal, LA area. Time for you to have dinner. Yes. Jane in Sweden, where it's past midnight, says the same thing as well. So this was great. So class dismissed just for now, and we'll be right here waiting for you for the next episode of the Jim Masters Show series. Tell a friend if you enjoyed what we did here and what we do here all the time. We really appreciate it, and it helps us grow. Truly does help us grow when you tell other people about the show. See you again soon. Comments still coming in Levity Hall. Thank you very much. Love you back, Jen. Jen Barry watching in Pennsylvania in her VW van. All right, gang. We'll see you on the next one. Jim Masters, thank you for your time. Next time till next time, or this time till next time, right? Next time till next time, this time till next time. We'll be here, whatever time it is. Love you all. Be well, and cheers.